And we are live. If you're watching this on the replay, you can fast forward about 15 minutes. We are in the process of getting things started. Let's check audio. Check 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's see how that sounds if I go listen myself to the audio. We should probably turn this down a little so I don't blow your ears out there. Let's try this and see what it sounds like. And we are live. If you're watching this on the okay, there you go. Okay. Let's tell people where we are. Let's modify the website. Let's do more stuff. And we need to change the banner at the top of the page of the website. And I think we've got everything else ready to go. The fact that YouTube's working today is fantastic. My live is right now under live. Save that text. We will clear the caches, and that covers the website. Hello, everyone. Hello, chat room. Hello, hello, hello. Just have to remember to record, and we'll be fine. Where's my drink? Where's my liquid? I need a hot liquid. Oh, should probably get the vocal zone in before I run out of time. Very noisy in the mic today, isn't it? You're hearing everything. I don't have any of the filters on. One moment. If you're watching this on YouTube and it's a Saturday morning at 11:48 Eastern Time, then you can pop over to ProfessorMesser.com where I will be watching the chat as it goes by, such that it is. Let's see how this goes. All right, we need to do, how about some camera checks? How about that camera? We in the middle? We're pretty much in the middle. We're close enough to the middle. There's the bird cam. This is waiting for me to start an activity. This is going to be this. And where's my graphics? Graphics are here. Very nice. Very nice. Okay, things are working. I like it when things are working. It's when things aren't working that's a little bit of a problem for me. Some remote control working. Let's try remote from the tablet. It is. It's all good. Now I just have to get down this peppermint oil menthol vocal zone so I can talk for 2 hours. It's been a fun week though. Been recording new Network Plus videos. Got some of them online, got a bunch I need to make available, and we are pouring through those. We're just hauling because all the content's made. I make all the content now prior to shooting the videos. I used to do them, make some content, shoot a video, make some content, shoot a video. And then I decided to make like a chapter's worth of content and shoot a chapter's worth of video. And now I just start from the very beginning and make every single video ready to go, ready to shoot, which is really the longest, hardest part. And then once that's done, we shoot video. The room for this. Yeah, Steve, you've been busy. You've been doing crazy. So you've been doing like real work, real network work. I've been shooting videos. How is that real network work? Other than shooting videos and putting, I think I added 8 more terabytes of storage because I'm shooting video. Whenever it's production time, I'm adding tons of drive space. In fact, where's my drive space? I can show you where we're at with this. Let's move this up. Let's move this down. Let's change this. In fact, I added all of the drives I added yesterday afternoon, probably about 4 or 5 o'clock local time, into the array, and we are expanding the disk. We're 38% into expanding the disk. So I have a little bit of time before that space is available. So I got to work on that. There's things I need to do to make that happen. There's nothing I need to do. I just need to wait. I probably need to clean out other parts of the whole area. Just clean the disk out. I'm sure there's stuff there I don't need. The problem is when I record one of these videos now, I'm recording it to a particular codec, an Apple codec, and I'm recording it at a very high bit rate so it looks as good as possible. But the problem, if I look at the bit rates for a video that is, let's do the one that's the overview of Network Plus, that video, when I was shooting it, turned out to be, well, I don't know. Let's start her up. 37 minutes. So 38 minutes of me. Look at that. That's a great shot, isn't it? That's what you don't get to see. 38 minutes of that, and it turned out to be 68 gig. So I'm sucking up a lot of disk space, a lot of storage space, because it's SSD on my machine in front of me, and it's spinning drives in the MDF, as I call it, in the data center. It's really what I call it, which is a closet. It's back there. It's over there. It's right there. We'll have to do a tour of the closet here soon. I'm almost ready to do it. I haven't quite finished putting the studio together, but we will be doing that. I know it's a lot of disk space, isn't it? It's one of those things where, though, it looks so good when you finally get it done, because all of the new videos prior to this point, the videos were captured in 1080, but they weren't produced in 1080. And so I could take a few things for granted, but now I can't. Now everything is produced in 1080. So it's one of those where you have to absolutely make sure everything's perfect, because you can really see what's going on the video. And I want it to look good, and I want it to sound good. So I want to capture it as well as I can. Speaking of which, it's time to record. I have a new recording system down here, which does not have any discs in it. And let's record both of these. Once they get initialized, there we go. Now we're recording. You can see the red lights down there as it's recording. It's the Cylon recording system. I have a plan. Might as well start the recording here as well. Everything will be on replay on YouTube. So I usually don't. What I need to do, and I planned on doing it this week and I didn't do it, was set up the recording system to output 1080 to YouTube, which is not happening here. It's really, really one of those things where I need a separate streaming system. So I have to set it up with, perhaps an Adobe media system. Get that running. I'm going to be sending video to a separate machine. The separate machine is going to be transcoding it and sending it up to YouTube in 1080. But it takes quite a bit of CPU and video power to do that. More than you might think. I've been doing 720 up to this point. 720, that's easy. There's nothing to it. One of those things. I know there's a few lights here, isn't there? You can't even see all the ones here because you can sort of see them if I put my shadow. Got bunches of lights there. There are bunches of lights on the board, the audio mixer. I don't have enough lights. I need more lights. I've been trying to think, do I put lights behind me? That's just annoying, I think. Well, not annoying, but it's annoying for me. I don't know if I want that. So I'm not doing that. Might as well start up Socrative so you see something going on. Let's do that. Teacher paste. And starter up. So if you're in Socrative, you will see, if I put my name in, Professor, Professor, you'll see something like that. It is a bit of a battle station, but I need all of this. It's important. All of this does something for me. What you're seeing on the stream right now is coming directly from the TriCaster, which is, you can't see it, it's that device over there. That's the screen. It's actually also the screen that I'm looking at here. So it's streaming everything directly from there. I have to get rid of this vocal zone. No security plus group, at least not yet. I want to get through the network plus videos. It takes a number of hours to get everything done in pre-show and pre-production for this. So it takes quite a bit of time. It'll take a morning or it'll take part of an afternoon to get all of these, because I effectively write all of the questions anew or grab some of the old ones and modify some of the ideas behind it. Then I have to find the videos that talk about it and put those. So it just takes a while. It's not difficult, but it's time consuming. And I've got a lot of other projects that I'm working on that are really trying to focus on. Okay, well, we're getting there. I'll talk about how to get into Socrative when we start, but effectively you can go to Socrative.com. There's also a Socrative student app you can load on your mobile device and go to the Professor Messer room, Professor Messer room. All right, no trolling in the chat room, please. I think we're about ready. We're about ready to get this thing going. Let's do this and see what happens. I'm already recording here. You're already watching there. I don't have a presentation on my screen. Let's do this. Here we go. All right. In 3, 2. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the March 2015 Professor Messer Network Study Group. This is where Network Plus Study Group. This is where we really sit down and go through questions and answers for the first hour here. And we talk about everything relating to Network Plus. And we also, in the second hour, take your phone calls. Those phone lines aren't open yet. I will open them up as soon as we get going on that piece. But I think that's one of the things that we like to do, is have a little bit of formal Q&A, and then we can just talk about anything. The phone lines are completely wide open for whatever we would like to do. This is something I do every month. Thanks for joining us. If you're joining us live and you're watching on YouTube, you may want to pop over to professormesser.com/live, because I do have in the Professor Messer website a chat room. So I'm watching that chat room go by, so you can communicate to me and I can talk back to you. So we've got that piece going during that first hour. I want to thank everybody for supporting us. I would not be able to do this without the support of watching my Network Plus video course. If you're not familiar with the course, every bit of my Network Plus course is available online. And if you'd like to have an offline version of it, I have one for sale as well. You can find that at professormesser.com/getnetplus. Also follow us on Twitter, YouTube, by going to professormesser.com/ and then something /Google Plus, /Twitter, /YouTube, and you'll find exactly what we are doing over there. I also want to mention, if you're planning to take your Network Plus certification or any of the CompTIA certifications, I have vouchers available for you. You can find that at professormesser.com/vouchers. You get 10% off right off the bat. So don't pay full price for your voucher. Get a 10% discount at least, and then of course you can take your exam. This is something I mentioned that we do a Q&A, so you get to follow along with what we're doing. You do that by using Socrative. This is a website that you can simply pop open a new browser window and go to Socrative.com and go to the Professor Messer room. Make sure you spell that right with Professor Messer. It rhymes sort of, except it's different letters. It's one of those things. And there are also applications, or apps as we call them these days, for your mobile device. So if you have a tablet or a mobile phone, you may want to load the Socrative Student app. They have a Socrative Teacher app as well. That's for me. The Student app is for you, at least today. And when you do that, you'll be able to follow along with what we're doing. In fact, you'll be able to see things right now. If you were to load up that application or go to the website, you'd be able to see this. You'd see a question which says, how long have you been studying for your Network Plus certification? And you can choose what that happens to be. Less than 3 months, 3 to 6 months, 6 to 9 months, 9 months to a year. This is just a way to first try out Socrative and see if it's working. And of course, it's something that also allows me to kind of watch how things are working on this side as well. And I get to see in real time how you're answering. This is one of those things also that helps me understand how I should be positioning the questions for you. And you can see almost half of us watching right now, or at least half of us who are using Socrative, have been doing this for less than 3 months. That's about right. We have a bit of a curve. It goes down, and then notice the curve goes up a little bit. It goes down 9 months to a year, and then over a year, you've got people like me that takes a very long time to take a certification exam. So that's one of those that we always see, you folks. A number of you already have your Network Plus certification. Continue to watch, because if you're watching this for continuing education units, whether this is live or on the replay, I'll be glad to give those to you, and I'll tell you all about how to do that later in the presentation. So for those of you that have been watching what's going on with the Network Plus, there's news, of course. We talked a little bit about this last month, but make sure everybody is up to date. There are 2 Network Plus certifications you can take right now. 2 completely different certifications. You take one or the other. You don't take both of them. You just decide which one you'd like to take. And when you take that exam, you become Network Plus certified. Doesn't matter which one you take. They are both going to provide you with exactly the same certification. The N10005 is the certification version that has been available for years. It's about 3 years old at this point, little over. It was released December 1st, 2011. They will be retiring that exam on August the 31st of 2015. Now, if you take it up to and all the way to August the 31st, you will still be certified for 3 years. So even though they're retiring the test, your certification does not expire. It continues for the same 3-year period, whether you take the 005 or the 006. It was in February last month where the N10006 was released. And that's why you are able to take both of these right now. CompTIA has an overlap period. So what if you're studying for your N10005, suddenly a new version comes out and you can't take that exam anymore? No, of course not. CompTIA wants to give you a ramp. They want to give you plenty of time to study out. They give you 6 months. So you can go 6 months now studying for that N10005 before it goes away. So that becomes very useful if you're doing that. Which one you take is really up to you. You may want to consider taking the new one, but the study materials for that are just now coming out. You may notice on YouTube, I'm just releasing the N10006 videos. My course notes are available for N10006, but some of the books out there are not available. Although GTS Learning does have their book available. That's what I use to make my videos. It doesn't matter, as I mentioned, which one you take. Just take one of them. As long as you pass it, you're certified for 3 years. So another one of those things to think about. Not a lot of differences in the exam. It's an update to the exam, but that doesn't mean that you can study for the 005 and then take the 006. There are some significant new topics on the 006 which are not covered on the 005. So if you're going to study for an exam, pick one, get all of the study materials for that version, and then you can take the exam. So I think that should help at least decide what direction we're going to go with some of those. All right, it's time for questions. Let's do some Network Plus questions. And I have a number of questions for you. Let's start with something that is on the Network Plus exam. In fact, it's one of the very first things on the 006 that you're going to learn about, and it deals specifically with packet shapers. So one of the questions here is, which of these would you be most likely to use before and after installing a new packet shaper? So we're really combining a couple different concepts with this question. We're going to put in a packet shaper. We're going to do something before we put in the packet shaper. We're going to do something after we put in the packet shaper. What's it going to be? Well, I've got some choices for you. The first choice is use a toner probe before and after, speed test site before and after, run a trace route before and after, use an OTDR, whatever that is. You have to remember what all these acronyms are in the Network Plus, or run ifconfig before and after. So you've got some different options to choose from. So it's a two-step question, really. And a lot of the CompTIA questions are two-step questions where you have to know something about the question and then they wrap a concept around it. So you have to know what a packet shaper is, and then you have to wrap these other concepts around it. You have to know what all these different options are for these pieces. And for those of you that would like to answer, no answering in the chat room. We've got the options in front of you to see on Socrative. So go to your Socrative app or open up a new window to Socrative.com and go to the room name Professor Messer, and you can decide what to do there. This is something I used to do a lot of packet shaping. I worked with a company that had a next generation firewall where we could do amazing things. We could stop the bad guys, stop the malware, do sandboxing of executables, and do packet shaping. So I got into a situation where we would install this packet shaper, but there was something I always did before and after I installed that packet shaper, and you need to know about that there. I think there's a lot when we're working through these questions where it would be nice to be able to figure out when we're installing these things what would really help us. So let's see what you think. Let's see what questions, which question you think was the right answer. And we're sort of all over the place with this one. Nobody chose toner probe. How is that even possible? I got nobody to bite on the toner probe. So most of you probably know that's really for handling wiring problems. It's either going to work or it isn't. If it's working, it's not going to be the toner probe. And then we've kind of got a tie for first. We've got effectively the same percentages, speed test site and trace route. Those would be two things to consider. And the other two, maybe a tie for second, is OTDR and ifconfig. So now we finally started off with a question where we have completely split on what the answers might be, and certainly don't have anybody who's tried to figure out what this is. Well, let's think about what this does. This packet shaper is. We're shaping packets. We're changing the way the traffic's going through the network. And when we do that, we're going to want to determine, prior to putting this device in, we're going to make sure that we've got the bandwidth we're expecting. We're going to shape that information. We want to see what it shapes to once we install this packet shaper. So your answer is going to be something like a speed test site. These speed test sites are phenomenal. And even in the most advanced networks, where you have the hugest data centers and the most expensive switches and routers and next generation firewalls and packet shapers and other filters, everybody uses these speed test sites across the board. Use them at home, use them in the biggest networks in the world. And I always used a speed test site prior to installing my equipment because I wanted to make sure a number of things were right. I wanted to make sure I didn't mess up anything with down at the Ethernet level, that I wasn't setting a speed or duplex incorrectly, because I would certainly see that by looking at the differences in speed tests through there. Wanted to make sure my device was working properly. And for packet shaping, where we're physically modifying how the traffic goes through the device, I want to see if it modified it. I want to see if it changed those things. So there's a couple of things that we can do. This would, of course, give us an idea of the type of bandwidth we're talking about, and we would see the differences prior to the installation and after the installation. We can also use these at different times of the day. There's a number of services you can subscribe to or purchase where they will check the bandwidth into your site at different times of the day, so you can get a feel for how the bandwidth is performing. Not all of these bandwidth sites are the same. I ran one the other day, and it was giving me very low numbers that I was not expecting. I was expecting high numbers. And I went to a different site and I got something else. So you may not even focus on a single website. This is speedtest.net here. I'm also a big fan of speedof.me. This is my speedof.me, where I'm pretty close to what I would be expecting. I download at 100 and upload at 15. So that is working out fine on mine. Speedtest.net I mentioned, testmy.net. A lot of your ISPs will also have their own internal speed test. And if you can access some that are local to you, relatively local in the big scheme of things, that may be a useful thing to have there to be able to use. So if we go back and look at everyone who answered, would not have been toner probe, because a toner probe would be able to solve wiring issues for us. We're not having a wiring problem. We're putting in a packet filter. We're putting in a packet changing device. So it's not a wiring issue. If we're going to check, we're going to run the speed test site. B would be your correct answer. Would not be trace route. Generally, these devices, even if they are layer 3 devices, you'll know if you can communicate through there, and they're usually local on your site. So this is not a case where we're wondering where the route is going. We can know exactly where the route's going. We put the device in front of us. That's not an issue. OTDR, the optical time domain reflectometer, which is used in fiber. The time domain reflectometer, without the O in the front, is used for copper. And again, we don't have a copper problem here. We don't have a fiber problem, which is what the O in optical is. That's not something we'd use. And ifconfig would look at the local IP configuration on our devices in an operating system, whether you're using ifconfig, ipconfig, depends on the operating system you're using, of course. That's something that's local on a machine. So if you answered B, speed test site, you would have gotten that one absolutely correct. All right, that was a good start, I think. Let's see how the next one does. Again, no answering in the chat room. Here's your next question. It is, which of these port numbers would be most likely to be used by RTP? Now, this is clearly, by the way, a N10006 question. I don't believe, maybe it is on the older exam. They did ask you RTP, but they absolutely ask you a number of voice over IP protocols on the 006. And not just RTP, but a number of others as well. So you have to know those when you're working with them. You have a number of options available to you. You can see, here they are. Is it a TCP 1720? Is it TCP 5060? Is it UDP 2427? Is it UDP 5004? Or is it UDP 2727? It's kind of a funny blocky thing working on my site, on my page there, isn't there? So that's where you have to know these protocols. You have to know the port numbers. This is pure memorization. And I understand when you're dealing with a lot of protocols, and especially all the protocols that you're throwing out, there's a lot of numbers you have to remember. And you have to remember where it's TCP or UDP. If you don't work with them, it does seem a bit frustrating. But what you'll find is, as you begin working with these protocols more and more, they just become commonplace. It's a normal thing. You remember your address because you use your address a lot. You remember your phone number. That's an odd number of characters stuck together, an odd number of of numbers put together, but you remember that no problem. Same thing with these port numbers and protocols. So don't be thrown too much by that. I think there's one of those things where when you start working with it, that's where you really become more comfortable with these port numbers. So don't worry that you don't get them, at least not offhand. But you should know that after a while, you will absolutely get better at using them because you're going to use them all the time. So let's see how we did. If we have a look, again, we're sort of a mixed bag of questions here. 16% said TCP 1720, 45% said TCP 5060, 19% said UDP 2427, 17% UDP 5004, and 3% said UDP 2727. Although I didn't put a slash in there, but you know what I was saying by that. Nope, only 3% said that one. Not many people said that one. Again, this is a rote memorization thing. And as I mentioned, the N10006 asks you a lot about voice over IP technologies because that's all we use these days. We're not putting in new phones using the plain old telephone system any longer. This is one where we're doing a lot of different voice over IP protocols. So here's a list of, in fact, these are all of the voice over IP protocols you will be asked on the Network Plus exam, the N10006. This is all of them that are listed in the objectives. CompTIA says we could go off the objective list if we want to. We're warning you. They generally don't. They generally stick to this. If you know these, you'll be fine. And you can see there's a lot of different protocols. This is just a handful. There are many different protocols used in the voice over IP world. A lot. It is an extremely complex set of protocols and interactions, especially when you get into multi-protocol, multi-vendor environments. It can become a bit of a challenge. So it's important to know these. And if we were talking about, in this case, I was asking the question of RTP. RTP stands for Real-Time Transport Protocol. This is effectively the protocol that's going to be used to transmit the media itself, the voice communication. When you're talking to somebody with voice over IP and you're hearing that person as they're talking, you're hearing them because you're getting RTP packets sent into your voice over IP device, and it's converting them back to analog and sticking them in your ear. So the RTP, extremely important. And if you look at bandwidth communication for voice over IP, RTP is going to be your number one communicator by bandwidth, by bytes, by packets, because there's just huge amounts of packets coming through the network, all of them this real-time protocol. So when we look at RTP, there's a lot of other protocols here. SIP and H323 are two of the primary signaling protocols you will run into. H323 being one of the older standards, SIP being a somewhat newer standard, although it's been around for quite some time as well. And then you have other gateway control protocols that are used to communicate back and forth to gateways. So in our case, RTP, notice it uses UDP. And for those of you familiar with TCP or UDP protocols, you know that this is one that doesn't formally set up any type of flow. It simply sends the packets down, and in fact, the sender doesn't even know if the packets got there. There's no way to get any type of response or acknowledgement back from the other side, which is exactly what you want in voice communication. If you lose a little bit, it'll drop out for a moment and things keep going. So that's exactly when you're looking at a list of things that say which one of these is RTP, you should immediately throw out anything that says TCP. So you can throw out A, you can throw out B. So we're looking at UDP, UDP, and UDP. Now it's more of a memorization thing. And when we were looking at our list, remember, and we looked at the UDP, we could see UDP 5004 to 5005 generally is the standard, most well-known protocol for RTP, which means that if you answered one of these 5004 UDP, if you answered D, 14% of you pulled that one out. How many of you guessed with that one? Did you guys have some guessers on that one? That would be the correct answer for this particular question. So you can already tell with the brand new Network Plus certification that there's a lot of new content. I mentioned you need to get the study materials for the new exam. If you're going to take the new exam, get the older materials if you're going to take the older exam. You don't want to have to learn something you're not going to use, or the other way is you don't want to study and then not learn the things you need to know. So that's something to keep in mind as you step through these pieces. Let's do another question. This is going pretty well so far, don't you think? We're doing all right. So this is a pretty long question. When you connect to the network, you're able to get an IP address through DHCP, but the address is on the wrong IP subnet. What is the most likely cause of this issue? And in fact, I sort of ran out of room. It would be, which of these would be the most likely cause of this issue? Would it be that the switch access port is assigned to the wrong VLAN? Is it that the DHCP server configured incorrectly? Is it most likely that your computer needs to be rebooted before connecting to the corporate network? Is it that the network interface card is faulty? Or is the most likely cause that a VPN client is in use? Got to be one of those. Remember, no answering in the chat room. We're going to try to figure out which one of these this would be. This is not something that should happen very often, by the way. This is something that should be relatively unusual if you're going to be connecting to a network. Generally, we plug in, we get a DHCP address, we're on our way. But sometimes you plug in, you're on a network, maybe you hit it for the first time, you plug in, you get a wrong address. This is something that actually happened to me when we were first getting a cable modem installation for the very first time. So this is going back a few years. So getting that very first cable modem installation, you have a cable company trying to do IP networking. At the time, they were just figuring it out. And I plugged in my system and got an IP address, and it was on the wrong IP subnet. How did I know that? I'll tell you more about this in just a moment. In the meantime, we can answer this question by going to Socrative.com and trying to figure out what's going on with this. Again, we're kind of split on this one. We've got kind of a mix of people. Nobody said the VPN client's in use. Good for you. Nobody said the network interface card is faulty. Good for you. This would not be the most likely reason for that. You've got a few of you, 15% said your computer needs to be rebooted before connecting to the corporate network. That's the easy way out, isn't it? Have you turned your computer off and back on again? Not exactly what I was shooting for here. And generally, if you're given the wrong IP address on the wrong subnet, the problem isn't with your computer. It's working fine. It's going out and getting an IP address and giving it to you. It assigned it and your system's working properly. That would not be the most likely reason for this particular issue. So we've got two things: switch access port assigned to the wrong VLAN, or is it the DHCP servers configured incorrectly? One of these would probably be the most likely. I think we could probably have an argument over which one is really the most likely. There's one that I chose through all of these that really is the most likely. It's the one that I most commonly run into. I mentioned that I've installed a lot of equipment over the years, and I'm the guy who comes in with a brand new piece of equipment, and they give me an IP address, I plug into the network. This is one of the most common reasons that it doesn't work when I plug it in, and it's VLAN problems. And the problem is that you aren't quite sure, especially if you're not getting a DHCP address. You plug it in, you got a link light, you see activity, there's a blinking green light. Aha, we're on the network. My cable is good. I've got a good solid connection. I see traffic. I visually see it by looking at the blinking light. I don't see traffic. That'd be crazy. That'd be like superhero. I see a blinking light, which tells me there's traffic going over this link. So I think there's an issue somewhere relating to VLANs at that point. And we'll talk about troubleshooting that in just a moment as well. Now, if you didn't have any connectivity at all, you wouldn't have any lights. So I know it's not a connectivity issue. It's not a cable problem. It's not a layer 1 issue. The problem is that I've been given an IP address, and if DHCP is working, I've been handed a DHCP address, and I can look at it and see, well, here's the IP address I was just given. At that point, you really have to go back to the network administrator and say, I was just provided this DHCP address. Am I on the right subnet? He'll go, wait a second. That access port, that interface on the switch should not be on that VLAN, should not be assigned to that particular VLAN. I need to modify that so you get a proper IP address. That is the most common reason for one of these things to happen. So at that point, we have to troubleshoot. And if I've got the VLAN IP address, I've plugged in and it's not correct, I can at least see if I've got connectivity, start pinging around. First thing you should always do if you're trying to determine, am I on the network, is to ping your default gateway, because we know that's an IP address that should be on our local subnet. And generally, it's a pingable device. That's a very good way to do it and verify that. I can go back to the network administrator. Is this the right IP address? And then he's going to go into the switch configuration, look at the settings for that particular interface, and make sure it's been assigned to the proper VLAN. This is one of those that is important, because if it's DHCP and I'm on the wrong VLAN, I'm going to get a DHCP address for that other VLAN. It's going to have to change the VLAN. I'm going to have to reset my network interface card, maybe disconnect it so it doesn't see signal, plug it in again so it runs through the DHCP process again, and get an updated IP address for that. And that would be the key for updating and understanding which VLAN I am actually on. So if we look at the options available to us, a VPN client's in use. A VPN client is something that generally loads after you get an IP address. Otherwise, the VPN client wouldn't work. So you'd be putting the cart well in front of the horse if your VPN client was starting before you actually had an IP address. The network interface card is faulty. If we got a DHCP is working, we know that's not the case. We already talked about it rebooting. That's not our issue. Here's of course the thing, because most of you said the DHCP server is configured incorrectly. And certainly that's possible. But the question asked you which of these things would be the most likely thing. Generally, a DHCP server is not something that is configured incorrectly. If it was, you would know very, very quickly whether that was the case. Nobody would be on the network. Nobody would be working. They certainly wouldn't have time to troubleshoot you connecting to the network. But that is one of those where you have to think about which one of these is really going to be the most likely. And to be fair, if you've not worked in a data center before, you may be trying to figure this out, which is why I tried to make these questions some of them completely wrong. Some of them could be right in certain situations, but in this case, not the DHCP server. Otherwise, nobody would have connectivity. This is the switch access point is assigned to the wrong VLAN. If you're one of the 41% who answered A, you would be absolutely correct. And that is a very, very common thing to find and run into when you're working with something like that. Also want to remind you, if you are working with this Network Plus certification, you're trying to figure out all of these different commands and trying to understand all of those different port numbers and trying to go through the process of just memorizing them, I do have a way to make this a little bit easier for you. I have these course notes, and you've probably seen these before. These course notes I put together by taking all of the information from my videos, and I've stuck them into a PDF document. And I have them both for the 005 and the 006 exam. In fact, they're much expanded for the 006, probably because there's more information on the 006. They added a lot more to that particular exam. So not only do you see the things like the common devices, try to put them in order of the network objectives, the Network Plus objectives, you do have a section, and it's more down near the bottom. Here's ports and protocols, my favorite sheet. This is 15 pages in the 006. So it's all in here. I've tried to take everything that you would need for your exam and make it available for you so that you don't have to take notes. You could, of course, take notes, write it all down. A lot of people love to do that. If you're someone who doesn't take notes well, or you just like to have everything in one place, it's a PDF document. It's electronic. It's immediately available when you purchase it for $10. So I've priced it nice and low, and every dollar of this goes back to support the website and keep things running. So we appreciate everything you're doing to make that happen. If you want to find out about these, go to ProfessorMesser.com. There's a Network Plus pull-down menu right at the top of the page, and then you'll see a link for the 005, and you'll see another link for the 006. Make sure, of course, that you get the study guide or the course notes that's appropriate for the exam that you will be taking. Very important when you're working through those. I love these study guides and course notes. I'm getting great feedback from them. I want to thank everybody who's purchased them and your feedback on these, especially if you've got the 006. I'd love to hear your feedback because I changed a few things with this one, made a little higher resolution. It looks crisp. It's not a protected PDF, so you can put it on all of your devices. So when you're sitting at your desk, you can look at it at your desk. When you're traveling, you can go to your mobile device or your tablet and pull it up there. There's no extra cost. You don't have to buy multiple versions. You don't have to deal with DRM. You don't have to load up some app. Nothing is keeping you from this information. This is something that make it so easy to look at, and because it's a PDF, look at it on everything. Find out more about that at ProfessorMesser.com. And thanks very much for all of your support with that. Could not really do this without those study guides. Let's do another question. Let's keep this going for these pieces and figure out these. I have more questions for you. This is fun, isn't it? I love this Socrative because I can load up all of these questions for you and then click a button and you see it appear on the screen. And so now I have another question. This one deals more with the technology of networking. So now we don't have to remember port numbers, thankfully. So now we've got a question about how the network works. And so the question deals specifically with packet switching. I'm looking for you to give me an example of what packet switching might be. And I want you to pick 3 different examples of this. And of course, I have some available for you to view. One example would be MPLS. Would it be PSTN? Would it be DSL? Would it be 802.11, ISDN, or T1? There is no exam out there, I think, that requires you to memorize more acronyms than a networking exam. And Network Plus is absolutely full of acronyms. So one of the things that you'll see on your exam is they will talk to you in acronyms and expect you to understand what they are saying so that you can then answer the question. I kind of reversed it in this case. I gave you the term that I'm looking for, packet switching. I want you to pick the acronyms that apply to packet switching. So again, it's 2 steps to be able to do that. I want to be able to step through those pieces and be able to work through that. So now you have to know first what packet switching is, and then you have to know which 3 of these things do packet switching. So think about that as you're going through. No answering the chat room. You have to be able to see that. There's not a lot of legacy on here. Somebody in the chat room said there's legacy protocols. Not really. Actually, everything that's on that page, everything that's on this page, it's being used right now actively in corporate networks, heavily in corporate networks. If you're walking in and doing networking, you're going to be supporting every single one of these technologies today and probably well into the future, I would say. You can go to Socrative.com and be able to have a look at what the options might be for this. We're choosing 3, so percentages won't work when we're looking at this, but I'm looking for packet switching. I love these kinds of questions where it's a mix of different things. For those of you that are sending me the private messages in the chat, you'll notice I can't answer them. I'm talking right now, but we'll, after we're done, if you're still on, I'll reply to those things. So you'll notice he's not talking back to me. I'll get to you, I promise. We'll get there. So let's have a look at how you answer the packet switching question. You're all over the place. I guess if we go the one that was answered the least, T1, what's answered the least. Let's see, ISDN 802.11, kind of and a tie with PSTN. We're kind of tied. DSL 14%, MPLS 26%. We're all over the place. So let's figure out what the difference is between packet switching and anything else. Let's just figure this out before we go any farther so that we can then understand more about this. And there's different ways to think about it and conceptualize it, but you can generally put the communication at this level into 2 categories. One of them is circuit switching and the other one is packet switching. And now you think about it, switching an entire circuit, we're talking about switching a very big thing. Circuits, WAN circuits, are very big things. They extend across buildings, across cities, across countries, across the world. These circuits are something that you build up just like a train track. How many times have you moved a train track around? It's very hard to move a train track. That's what a circuit is. You're laying this track in the line and you're putting it across to some other side, and there it sits. And this circuit switch technology is one we've been using for a very long time. Sort of like a phone call. You set up a phone call, you're on the phone, you're talking to one person on the phone. That's who you're talking to. Until that phone call's over, that's the only person you're talking to on that phone. It's going between you and them. It is point to point, and that's it. That circuit is up and running. This is where, when we get into this, the circuit switching is kind of inefficient. I mean, if you're talking back and forth, that's fine. But imagine a phone call that never hung up. And you go to sleep, nobody's talking on that phone line, but it's still there. Circuit's still up and running. T1s work this way. Circuit is up and running. And even if you don't send data across it, the path is there and it's just not being used. It's a waste of money, a waste of a circuit. This is one of the reasons we don't do a lot of circuit switching any longer, for one of those very reasons, but it's always there. It's one of the advantages of having your own private dedicated circuit. Nobody else can use it. Nobody else can suck the bandwidth out of it. I'm going to pay for it. It's always going to be available to me. which sounds good to me. I'd be glad to do that because now it's guaranteed capacity. I can do whatever I want over that link. Circuit switching are things that you might expect. I mentioned the telephone earlier. It's a perfect example of a circuit switch network, the plain old telephone system, the POTS, plain old telephone service, and PSTN. You'll also hear it referred to as that, as your public switched telephone network. Public circuit switched telephone network would probably be a better name. And of course, I mentioned T1s and E1s and T3s and E3s. Those are circuits you build, and you've got a connection from those two locations, from one point to another. ISDN is a very good example of that. ISDN, effectively, you're calling a phone line. It's a phone number that ISDN uses to call one ISDN side to the other. So if you're picking up the phone and you're setting up a circuit, that's a circuit switch communication. While you're talking over that ISDN, you're going between those 2 points and nowhere else. You want to talk to somebody else ISDN, you hang up the ISDN connection, you call the next ISDN number. Circuit switching. Our question was about packet switching. So the packet switching piece, a little bit different. This is the internet. This is when we're really doing networking right here, isn't it? Well, they're both networking, but now instead of switching entire circuits, we simply tell the packets where to go. It's a much more effective communication for the type of data we're sending because we're not building a circuit to Google and asking for a Google communication and then hanging up with Google and then talking to the next site we're going to. We're simply sending everything out a single connection and it figures out where to go. It is switched based on where the packet destination is. And that's why when we talk about sharing this media, whenever we talk about using our things like our cable modems and DSL, it's going back to a central point, and then we're sharing all that bandwidth wherever it may go. This is, of course, the arguments we have about people using up all the bandwidth in our neighborhood or in our cities, and the fights that we have about network neutrality and the bandwidths being available to us. This is what we're talking about. We're talking about the packet switching technologies. We do have this concept, of course, in packet switching where one connection might have more bandwidth than another. You're not building a connection like we are with circuit switching. We're using existing connections and everybody gets to share those. And when we talk about things like packet switching, we're talking about these types of technologies. Things like SONET, ATM, things like DSL, frame relay, MPLS, cable modem, satellite, wireless. Some of the latest networking technologies where we build this always-on connection and the traffic figures out where it's going based on the packet. It is switched based on where the packet's going. So pretty useful to have that. So if we were to look at our list, and of course the question was about an example of packet switching. You could do this two ways. You could take the circuit switching and remove them, or you can find the packet switching. So if we were to look at packet switching ourselves, MPLS, that is certainly a packet switching technology. PSTN, the packet switch telephone, or the packet switch. I got packet switching on my mind. The PSTN connection for the plain old telephone system is not a packet switch network, would not be B. DSL, absolutely. 802.11, absolutely. ISDN and T1 are not packet switch. Those are circuit switch. So if you answered A, C, and D, you would have gotten this one absolutely correct. Wow, it was a long one. There was a lot to go through for packet switching and circuit switching. But if you didn't get that one correct, maybe now you're going to be in good shape. That's ever asked of you. You only learn things when you get them wrong, I think, if we look at things that way. Well, let's see how we do with this one. Got a little bit of an easier one. Again, no answering in the chat room. Which of these technologies is designed to prevent loops in a switched network? Guess it would be good if I clicked on my screen so that you'd be able to see it change on your screen. And there it is. There are a lot of different networking technologies, especially when you get into switching, get into routing, a lot of different routing protocols and switching mechanisms. So when we start looking at which one stops loops, this is one of the things we want to know about. Here's your options. Would it be loopback? Would it be PoE? Would it be spanning tree? Would it be VLANs? Would it be LDAP? Or would it be SNMP? This is one of those that's relatively straightforward. There's no multiple steps with this one. Which of these is preventing loops? This is almost like you needing to know the definition of these acronyms and these terms, because that's what I'm putting in front of you is a list of those acronyms and those terms. So one of these is designed to prevent loops in a switched network. I guess I did qualify it a bit, a switched network. That might help you decide whether one of these should be considered as a question or not. To answer, of course, you go to Socrative.com. And you answer the question in Socrative.com by going to the Professor Messer room, Try to spell it there. You have to spell it just right. or it doesn't work right. If you type in the wrong thing in a browser, you somehow end up at my site. It doesn't work that way with Socrative. You have to be very specific to know this. I think, yes, a lot of chat rooms saying, I know this one. Finally, I've got a question. In fact, most of you, I think, know this one. But it's also a good technology to know about. You have to know about this technology not only for Network Plus, but if you go on and take other networking certifications after this, they're going to ask you about this technology. Because as you might imagine, preventing loops on a network is a pretty important thing. Loops on networks are bad. There is not a loop on a network which is good, generally speaking, and normal operation is good. So you don't want to even work through those, to be able to work with, what is this? What could it be? I'm not sure which one of those I should work with. So let's see how we did. We've got a number of you that have answered. Let's see what the answer is. Well, we have one that really went way up there. 71% of you said spanning tree, and 10% of you would be the next highest. SNMP, 8% of you said VLANs, and a smattering of you said PoE, loopback, and LDAP. Should we go with the phone a friend on this one and just decide, yeah, we're going to take, it's not even 50-50, is it? I think 69% of you said, I think it's spanning tree. Is it spanning tree? But is it spanning tree? Is it loopback? Loopback has the word loop in it. So clearly it would be loopback, wouldn't it? No, it would not. It would be something dealing with loop protection. We generally, when we connect switches to each other, we want these switches to be able to communicate back and forth. And at the MAC layer, at the Ethernet layer, there's no counter on the frame. The frame goes back and forth, and it will circle forever until we decide to disconnect or stop it from doing that particular thing. It won't drop off the network by itself. There's a very easy way. If you want to bring down a network, you just loop it. It takes moments, and the entire network just falls to its pieces. There's a way to stop this, of course. This is a standard called spanning tree. It's called the 802.1d spanning tree. It's been around for a long time. 1990 it was when we first started this standard, or so, somewhere in there. Radia Perlman was the one who did this. It's a great book she wrote on networking. I need to find mine. It's like it's a tome you should have. Here, I have a physical version that's made from dead trees. You might get something that's a little easier to take with you. So that's why whenever we start working with these things on a switch, we want to be sure that we don't have a loop. Spanning tree is the way to make that happen. And I think if we're worrying about network and its availability, it's an important consideration. I was just reading on Reddit this week. Reddit, by the way, has a fantastic networking subreddit. And somebody was mentioning there that they weren't really familiar with networking. They're kind of getting into it. They've been thrown into it, which happens all too often. And they noticed their network does not have spanning tree enabled. And everybody's jumping into the conversation saying, oh, you need to turn spanning tree on. Turn on spanning tree. Because it turns out he had added something to the network, plugged it in, the whole network went down. And if you've been around switch networks for any amount of time, when somebody plugs something in and the network goes down, you got a loop. Yeah, you looped it. That's a loop. That's a problem. You've now made everything so busy trying to send more and more traffic instantly across the network. That is exactly what's going on with that. So if we look at our answers here, you 70% of you that said spanning tree, absolutely correct. Would not be loopback. Loopback, there are a couple of references to loopback, I guess. There's a loopback adapter inside of your operating system. If you pinged the loopback address of 127.0.0.1, it will ping back to you. It will tell you that it's alive. You've just pinged yourself internally. Never actually went across a network. It's a good way to check your IP stack. If you're checking things like WAN links or network interfaces, you can loop back a CSU DSU. You can also plug a loopback adapter or cable into a device and have that device talk to itself, which is very good if you're trying to troubleshoot types of links. PoE stands for Power over Ethernet, and that means you can plug in a device like an access point or even larger devices like cameras, or we're going to get to the point where we can send enough power down the line to power laptop machines. We can do that with Power over Ethernet. Doesn't stop any loops, however. VLANs is a mechanism for separating the network into different pieces. If anything, it creates problems with switching loops. It's a challenge to manage something that's virtual. And VLANs is just a way to manage and separate our network into very specific areas. Does nothing to stop loops. LDAP. That's a way to communicate to a centralized database of information. That's more of an application type of communication, has nothing to do with loops. And SNMP, the simple network management protocol that we can use to get metrics and information from our networking devices, find out availability and uptime and interfaces, and if there are any errors on switches and routers and firewalls and servers. We use SNMP. Again, does nothing to stop any type of loops. Okay. That is the, and I don't think I fooled anybody, but that is really the answer. If you want to stop loops on your switch network, it is spanning tree. And if you watch my videos, I do have a description of how spanning tree works. I take you through a scenario with spanning tree so you can see exactly the way that it works and how it operates. Now it's time for more protocols. One of the new topics from the N10006 is greatly expanded. Security is the topic that is greatly expanded on the N10006. There's a lot more security questions, and they get down to the protocol level with security, and they ask a question like this one, which is, which of these protocols would not be considered secure? Pick two. I've done a couple of things with this question, by the way, and you really have to watch this on the Network Plus certification, is how the questions themselves are worded. Some people say this is a trick, that they put words into the question. Not sure how you're supposed to ask a question without words, but they throw words in like not. Which of these protocols would not be considered secure? If you're not reading this, you may miss the not part. Which one of these protocols would be considered secure? Okay, let me answer that. No, I'm asking you which would not be considered secure. And I'm also asking you to pick two of these. Now, fortunately on the exam, if you only pick one, it will tell you didn't pick enough. Or if you pick three, it'll tell you pick too many. And it has check boxes next to the answers rather than the radio button. So visually, you will see immediately, oh, I've got a different box here. Perhaps I should pick more than one of these. Let me read the question again because I completely missed that. Oh, I have to pick two of them. Oh, and the word not's in there. So you have to read it. Make sure you read the question. Here's the possible answers for us. TLS, SNMP-v3, Telnet, SFTP, IPsec, and HTTP. Again, lots of protocols to be able to do this. I think that whenever we start working with these, I'm glad some of you are finding these better than the other questions I was asking. Good for you. Maybe you're ready to take the exam. But some of us are just trying to figure this stuff out for the first time. Fortunately, this is one of those cases where I think it's a little bit easier to be able to work through these when you're trying to figure out the acronyms. A lot of these we've worked with in the past, so you may be able to check off which one of these would not be considered secure. In fact, there's an entire section, very small section of the N10006, which talks specifically about protocols which are secure and protocols which are not secure. And I'm taking this directly from that one. So these are, if you know this, good for you. There's an entire section, a little section of a chapter of a domain that is very good to be able to do that. The exams do not misspell words. They do not use improper English to trick you. They don't trick. Trust me, when you read the question, you will know exactly what they're going after. People who think that they're being tricked on the exam, I think, are people that don't quite understand what's being asked of them. You don't know the material. They're very straightforward when you start looking at them. So let's see how we did with this one. Let's see if I can pop it up on my screen and see how we did. So we had to pick two that would not be secure. You guys did great on this one. You can see there's two very big winners with this. Again, the percentages don't make much sense because you're picking more than one in your app, but you can certainly see that the bulk of folks chose CTelnet and FHTTP. There's TLS, there's SNMP-v3, SFTP, and IPsec got single digits in the answers that are available in this particular case. So there are a number of secure protocols we're going to need to know. What are these acronyms anyway? You may have seen these. I didn't have this as one of the possible answers, but SSH is a secure protocol that's used whenever you need to connect to a remote device in a terminal screen, a character-based CLI, for instance. SFTP, that was one of the options when we're looking at secure protocols, one of the ones that we had on this question. That is a secure file transfer protocol that uses SSH. So it's exactly the same system of communication to be able to make that one done, to make that one secure, and so that everything is able to communicate in a way that is secure. SNMP v3, which is the latest version of SNMP. Again, I mentioned earlier, it's a way to gather management information from your network devices. And SNMP, the version 3, does provide a way to encrypt the communication between you and that remote device. SSL or TLS, which is the latest version, although we generally call it SSL these days, even technically it's TLS. But it's one of those things that in the industry, one of those, we just call it SSL, even though it isn't, but it was. It's one of those situations. Certainly SSL and TLS are secure type of protocols, and IPsec is certainly a secure protocol as well. So if you answered any of those, you would be doing fantastic with those particular options. And I think as we go through and work through different protocols, that's where we really get into working and trying to understand more about the way these protocols are going to operate. I like going into and looking at how things are running across the network. If you're ever wondering, are the protocols I'm using really secure? Capture the packets, load up Wireshark, install Wireshark, get it running, and you will be surprised at how much you're able to see going across the network in the clear. You can, in some protocols, pick out the username, pick out the password. Telnet's a good example of this. And then you see all the communication going back and forth between those two. This is one of the biggest challenges you're going to run into then, is making sure the communication is encrypted. So don't just trust that you've chosen an encrypted protocol and you've got that going. You really have to make sure that you are using the right protocol with this. I think that's one of the most important parts of that, is having that there. If I'm going to be using a communication over the network, I'm outside of my studio, I'm somewhere else looking at a coffee shop, I'm at a hotel, I'm at a conference, especially where everybody is listening to the wireless network, at least the conferences I go to, it tends to be that way. This is one of those cases where you really want to be sure the communication is indeed encrypted. So please make sure by using something like Wireshark and look at the communication itself. If you can't make out anything, that's what you're shooting for. Make sure you're using these different protocols. Well, let's go through and I want to give you a different perspective of information. Maybe I'm talking about doing things you've never done before. You're using Wireshark, for instance, and viewing packets. Maybe it's one of these situations where you're worried about the performance-based questions that are going to be on the exam. And that's where you really need some hands-on. You want to be able to run some of these command line options. You want to be able to go through and run through some labs. And if you have ever run through and looked at the GTS Learning live labs with Freestyle, then you know that's a great way to sit down and have all of these operating systems, all of these applications, these servers, these other devices available to you at a glance. It's an easy way to be able to see exactly what to do with these pieces. I've got the live labs running on my screen here, just so you can see it. I'm going to pop over so you can see. I've got these are all in the cloud. So I don't have anything loaded locally on my machine. I'm running everything in this view. So I've got, in fact, a port scanning lab that's up. And here's the network design right here on my screen. I've also got the lab itself. It tells you step by step what to go through it. And now things are starting up. So I've got my gateways, my servers. And now when we click on a device, we're connected to it. Here, in fact, this is a Windows server that's running. In fact, this one even has Wireshark running. And this is not an environment that's emulated. It's not screenshots. This is running a version of Windows in this screen. I didn't even load any extra software. I'm running everything as HTML5, and I can start capturing traffic from the network just by going to Wireshark and starting that piece, or stepping through the lab and starting up with the lab information and going to control panel and stepping through and pulling up the server information. I think this one started with server details. So you've got a full-blown Windows server running with a full-blown client running on this device too. So you can start the server doing one thing. This one's even running in-map, so I can run some type of port scanning, because that's some of the things that would be nice to do. And I can just run it and watch the packets go by. And there they are. There's my SMB packets. And am I seeing anything in the clear? We talked about being able to see these things in the clear. And if I scroll down, see if this This has this in the clear. I'm seeing quite a bit of details here, and almost everything, because it's running SNMP and TCP. That's a good example of running things all wide open so I can see. In fact, you can see tree disconnect, log off. It's all in the clear at the application level. These are not encrypted protocols. So that's another example. These labs you can try absolutely free for an hour. So, and there's also special pricing on these just for people who are watching Professor Messer videos and going to these study groups and watching these as well. If you want to know more about that, go to professormesser.com/netlabs, and you can absolutely go through and learn everything you need to know about doing things like this with Wireshark. I do love the Wireshark. Special pricing, by the way, big discounts over what you would have if you just went to GTS Learning. If you want access for a year, it's only $99. Again, try it for free. Maybe it's something you can use, maybe it isn't, but it's a great way to try it out. See if that's going to work for you. Go to professormesser.com/netlabs. All right, we've got more questions. Let's keep this party going. I know we're getting close to the top of the hour, but I want to get through maybe one or two more before we're finished. If I would keep the party going here. Let's see the next question then. Let's pop this open. It's which of these would be the best tool for troubleshooting an open cable? An open cable. One of these is going to be the best. Now, this is one of these where I really need to know my devices, because here's the questions that are the answers that are posed. Would it be a TDR? Would it be a toner probe? Would it be a multimeter, a crimper, or a protocol analyzer? It's going to be one of these. But you got to find, again, it's all in the way that it's telling you want the best tool. Not just any tool, because you could troubleshoot an open cable in many ways. But which one of these would be the best tool for troubleshooting an open cable? That's the real key, is finding the best one to be that. You know, folks in the chat room talking about the Wireshark. I used to do protocol analysis for years and years and years and years and years. So I love the protocols. I'm a big fan of the protocol analysis. Yeah, it used to be Ethereal. Now it's Wireshark. It's been Wireshark for a number of years now to have that running. Which one of these would be the best tool? It's got to be one of these. Oh, I like questions like this. I think we're torn over which one this one could possibly be. Which one would be the best tool for this? And I'm gonna talk about that in just a moment. Oh, good question in the chat room. Is it illegal to use a packet capturing device in public? Perhaps not illegal to passively listen on a public network, although laws are different depending on where you go. And there are certainly places where being on a public network and listening to what's going by could be illegal. It just depends on where you are and what you're doing. So be very careful about that. You generally don't want to capture packets unless you have permission to do so. On your own network is a good place to capture packets. In a coffee shop, not a very good place to capture packets. Very bad idea. It's one of those cases whenever you're doing that. So let's have a look at how you answered this one. The best tool for troubleshooting an open cable. Was it a crimper? Was it a protocol analyzer? Those are the single digits on this one, but we're kind of split. Would it be a TDR, a toner probe, or a multimeter? Well, we're trying to find an open. It's an open cable. It means there's a break somewhere in the cable to be able to have that there. So we have to use something to be able to find a break in the cable. And this can be really hard to find because you don't know where the run goes. May go into the floor or into the ceiling. It goes across. It goes to another floor. You're plugging it in. Where is it? Where's it going? You're never quite exactly sure where that cable might be because generally you can't see it. It's inside the wall or inside the ceiling somewhere. You're kind of wiggling. Is this it? Is that the one? Let me pull it a little bit. Have I found the right one? Not a very good way to troubleshoot a particular cable. And you want to be able to replace this cable, obviously, because it's open. If it's in the wall and you've got an open, hopefully the open is somewhere close to the ends, or that's where the open is. If the open is anywhere in the wall or in the ceiling, you're just going to have to replace it because those are really difficult to fix once it's in there. So if you're going to find the open, the best tool to use is a time domain reflectometer, or TDR. These are great devices. You plug them in, they send a signal down the wire, and you're usually putting a separate box. You can even see it on this picture. You've got your primary analyzer and you've got this little box on the other end that effectively reflects the signal back to you. And so it's looking to see what it's getting back. And if it's not getting a response back, there's an open across that particular wire. And it will even tell you if we get a certain reflection back from that open, because it will send some signal back over the open. When we see that signal coming back, it even knows how far down the line the open was. It tells you exactly how many feet away that particular cable has a problem, which is great. That is the best tool to be able to solve a problem with opens. Very, very useful. The OTDR we talked about earlier was the optical version of that for fiber. So it does a similar thing, obviously a little different in structure, but a similar type of functionality for fiber. But we've got a few options here. Why is it not the others? If you answered A, TDR, you'd be absolutely correct. Toner probe, how come not a toner probe? Toner probe is used to identify where a wire is. And generally you're plugging it in and you're sending a signal across that, and you're looking for that wire on the other side with an inductive probe. I have mine around here. I was just using it. And it tells you where the end of the wire is, but it doesn't necessarily tell you that one of those wires has an open. All you know is you've identified where it is. In fact, if you're trying to solve an open, it probably isn't the whole cable. You may start with finding the ends of it, and that might help you find the ends of the cable, but it doesn't help you solve the problem of the open. And there's the other challenge is multimeter. A multimeter would be a great tool to help you find where the open is because it shows you continuity. You plug one pin to pin 1 to pin 1 with a multimeter, it tells you whether it's talking pin 1 to pin 1. Well, that's a perfectly valid tool to use for solving an open. But remember, the two ends of the cable are in two completely different places. One's in the data center and another one's somewhere out on the floor. Your multimeter isn't long enough to stretch all the way down the hallway with one of those probes and the other one down the other hallway for the other end of the probe to be able to do continuity. You don't have that luxury. So that would not be your best choice for solving a problem with opens. Instead, you're going to need a TDR to do something like that. And that would be really one of the best things to use. They're relatively expensive. TDR is going to be in the hundreds of dollars to be able to have that, but they are great tools to have. And if you're doing any type of decently heavy networking, you're going to want one of those. On my network, that's even one of those where I wish I had one sometimes. I don't have a TDR on my home studio network. And trust me, sometimes it would be nice to have one in here to be able to see what was going on, because it gets a little squirrely at times trying to connect up all of these different devices and get them running. Well, if I had to tell you one thing that you really have to do to be able to take before you walk in to take your exam, the thing I'll tell you to do is download the exam objectives. Everything you need to know is in the exam objectives. I say this on every study group that we do. And the reason I say it every time is that sometime during the month, somebody shows up in the chat room, they go, I didn't pass my exam. They asked me questions I had no idea what they were talking about. These questions I had never seen before on any of the sample exams or whatever they were using to study from. And the question we naturally ask next is, well, did you download and read the exam objectives? And they say, what are you talking about? What's an exam objective? I don't know what that is. That is why I always mention this, because the exam objectives can save your life. I will show you, for instance, the N10006 exam objectives. And if you've never seen these before, you will be blown away at the content that is here. Here's the exam objectives. Let's slip through the first couple of pages. I want to get to the actual data. So section 1, explain the functions and applications of various network devices: router, switch, multi-layer switch, firewall, HIDS, IPS, IDS, access point, content filter, load balancer, hub, analog modem, packet shaper, and VPN concentrator. That's just the first section. This is the very beginning. We're just scratching the surface. You have to know what all these things are, what they do, when you would use them. You explain the functions and the applications. If you can do that with every single one of them, then you're done with section 1.1. Go to section 1.2. Compare and contrast the use of networking services: VPN, site-to-site, host-to-site, host-to-host, protocols such as IPsec, GRE, SSL VPN, PPTP, and PTP and PPTP, TACAX and Radius, RAS, web services, unified voice services, network controllers. These are the things that it tells you exactly, and there are pages and pages and pages and pages and pages. These CompTIA does a better job than anyone in the industry at telling you exactly what you need to know before you go to take this exam. So make sure that you've downloaded the objectives. You can go to type into the Google CompTIA exam objectives, go to professormesser.com/objectives. Just go to professormesser.com/ and I try to put something there. Objectives will take you to the exam objectives. It's a great thing to have available. And if you're doing anything with any type of exam, download the exam objectives, no matter whether they're from Microsoft or Cisco or anywhere else. Download them, especially download the CompTIA objectives. They will tell you everything you need to know. If you're walking into your exam and you've never read the objectives, there are points that you're leaving on the table. And they're points you can absolutely use to be able to do that. Well, that brings us to the end of another study group. We went through a lot of content on this one, and we went through a lot of questions. If you're watching this live, we do a live call-in show right after this. Stick around for the after show. We'll get this. For those of you that have been watching this for continuing education units, then you need to go to the Professor Messer website, and at the top, there's a link, and you need to send me the special keyword of TDR, time domain reflectometer. Just put TDR in the email to me, and I will send you back a little certification note that says you really, really, really did watch this. And you can do that whether you're watching live or whether you're watching the replay. So that helps as well. We will be doing another one of these every month. Make sure you check the Professor Messer website for more details on that. I've got all of my course notes and things that you can absolutely have a look at. We've got the Twitter and the Google Plus and the Facebook links. Again, don't forget to save 10% on your vouchers by going to professormesser.com/vouchers. And again, thanks to GTS Learning, get your free hour of live labs at GTS Learning at professormesser.com/netlabs. We'll do another one of these next month. Keep checking the Professor Messer website /calendar for the next edition of this, and we'll be glad to have you join us. We'll do much more Q&A in the month of April. Thanks for joining us, everyone. We'll see you next time on the Professor Messer Network Plus Study Group. That was a lot of information in a very short period of time. Let's get the phone lines open, shall we? What's taking so long to get this party going? We start off rough on that one. I asked some hard questions at the beginning of that one, didn't I? Let's see if I can start up this connection that I have. I will get this running in just a moment. I generally don't bring the phone lines up until we are ready to go. So let me host a show here and get things going. It's going to talk to me for a moment. Here we go. I see some of you are already calling in. I apologize. We're not up yet, but you're welcome to call right back. I'm going to get my connection going to this. I guess you're actually in there now, so you're on hold. So you're doing good at this point. Let me call up this. This is the fun part of it, isn't it? Here we go.
Thank you for calling.
You're welcome. Yeah, sure. No problem.
Please enter your show number and press.
I will do that. And I'm a smart person.
Enter your 6-digit PIN number.
Giving you my DTMF codes. Let's see if I got this right.
You are now in the host.
I am in the queue. So there's a lot that we went through on this one. I think I've got a lot of those pieces. We've got, thanks for chat room. You guys did a very good job for that piece. It's one of those. There's a contact us link at the top of the Professor Messer website that you can use to send that continuing education unit request with the special code, the key code, and I will send you the certificate. Very, very useful to have that. Let's see who's on the phone. Let's see what we're doing here. On here, I think I have a 215 area code here. Are you there, caller? What's your name? Oh, I can hear me. We're not listening to
Hello?
the phone. Hey, what's your name?
Oh, Professor Messer. Yes, my name is Michael.
Hello, Michael. How are you, sir?
I'm doing good. Just to be sure, this is the Network Plus study group for March 21st.
And it's live. I can only be in one place at one time, unfortunately. I haven't figured out that whole cloning thing or working in another type of of reality. Unfortunately, it's me and it's live and it's right here, Michael.
Okay, all right. Technology's crazy, so I thought I'd.
I know. Is it live? Who knows? Yes, you are.
All right. Well, I do have a question. I know the live stream is over, but I work in a hospital or a research facility, but anyway, I was working on an issue yesterday, and I don't work in the back end. I don't work in the data center. That's what I'm working toward, but I'm basically just a newbie when it comes to everything. But
Okay.
I had a printer that was having a problem grabbing an IP address or a PIPA address, or from the DHCP server. So it was an OfficeJet 8600 premium.
Okay.
Not the printers I'm used to working with. I'm used to working with the high-end LaserJet printers. But no matter what you would do to this printer, it would grab a 169 IP address. You would restore the
Yes.
defaults. You would even try to manually assign it, but for some reason, it only wanted to grab a 169 IP address. Is there something possibly on the back end of the network that was rejecting that IP? Now, this printer was working in another network, but we had moved these clients to a newer building with a newer network with more
Okay.
security and all the bells and whistles.
Oh, so
Is there a possibility that something on the back end with rejecting that MAC address is saying, no, I'm not giving you an IP because you're not in my list, or you're not locked down, or whatever?
what is it with printers? This for those of us that have started on the A+ certification, we know printers is just a constant challenge trying to get these things to work properly. Just hard enough to get them to print, and then, as you just mentioned, hard enough getting them to actually give you an IP address to get these things working as well. I would agree it can be a challenge with this. For those of you that are kind of getting into your Network Plus and working with this, let's first kind of define what we're talking about with the APIPA is the automatic private IP addressing. This is where you've got a device and it has tried to go out to get a DHCP address, and it's tried, but for some reason, it's not getting any response from any DHCP server, or the DHCP server has decided not to provide it with an address. And you're not quite certain which one of those it is. All you know is that it didn't work getting an automatic address from a DHCP server. So what our machines do is they decide to assign a local, what we call a link local address in the IPv6 world. But it's an address that can at least be used to communicate between other devices on the same subnet who have run into the same problem. And it's assigned an address that's 169.254.0.1 through
Right.
169.254.255.254, which is what you're seeing. You're seeing these, and we call them the 169 address. Oh, I got a 169 address. Oh, no. Now, what am I going to do? It's getting it because it is either talk to the DHCP server or send out a DHCP broadcast to try to find one, and either got no response from one, or it was able to communicate with the DHCP server, and the DHCP server sent a response back saying, I don't have an IP address for you. Thank you so much. And then it said, well, I'll just make one myself out of a 169.254.
Yep.
So it's unlikely. It's generally unlikely that the DHCP server is full or other people would be having problems with it. It's more likely that for whatever reason, the printer and where it's plugged in, when it sends the broadcast isn't getting to the DHCP server wherever it happens to be. And in large environments, you probably even have multiple DHCP servers, so that if one was down, at least the other one would still be working and everybody would be getting an IP address. So that's why whenever I start thinking about the problem you're having, and whenever I plug in and I don't get an IP address, first thing I'm checking is cabling and making sure I'm getting a signal. Then I check to see if I'm getting to where the DHCP server is. In fact, in many cases where this is happening, very similar to the question we had earlier in the live stream, it's a VLAN problem. You got put on the wrong VLAN, or the VLAN is misconfigured and it can't find its way back to the rest of the network so that it can then get a DHCP address. And in this case, was it a case where only the printer was the one having the problem and everybody else was working okay?
Yeah, it was only the printer that was having the problem. Now, I did plug a laptop or a computer into that same port, into that same Ethernet
Yes.
cable coming off that same port. Laptop grabbed the DHCP fine.
Aha,
So
okay.
it was just that particular printer.
Then you are definitely, you've narrowed it down quite nicely. If it's exactly the same cable plugging into that laptop as plugging into the printer, then now your problem is with the printer. And it's probably more than likely that there's a problem with the Ethernet connection on that printer. Maybe it's these office jets and office laser printers. They usually aren't
Right.
aren't modular. It's usually built into the
Right.
device. So that may be a problem. It could be that your Ethernet connection has just gone bad and it's not working. And you may want to look at it. Maybe during the move, somebody crams
Right.
something into the port and the pins are bent. You may be able to.
Yeah, that could have been in their old offices. There were wires going everywhere. So somebody might have tripped over the cable. It could have
Yep.
snagged the and they were mainly using it for a fax. They barely used it for any kind of networking, but it was plugged into a network port. So that could possibly be it.
You never know what's going to happen during a move because there's wires going everywhere. Right. People are unplugging things. The people who move things are unplugging computers, and they are not used to working with computers or understanding there's a tab that you click on that removes the cable from the interface. They're just yanking on things, and you never know what's going to happen. So you've done exactly the right thing for troubleshooting, and I would point to that Ethernet port as being your problem with that one.
Okay, will do. Thank you very much, Professor Messer.
Good luck with that. Let us know how it goes to and what you find out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Have a great weekend.
All right, you too now. Thank you.
Why is printers? Why is it printers? Why does it have to be printers for these kinds of problems? It seems that it's the bane of our existence to be able to work with those printers. As some of you have realized, the phone lines are open. So if you're on professormesser.com/live, I guess I think I have, where's my view here? Here we go. See, there's even a number here, 1-855-785-RJ45. So that's the number to reach us here. You can also find the phone number on professormesser.com/live. I've got the number listed at the bottom of the screen there. I think I'm a little higher than I was on the A+ study group last time. Maybe I should bring down my lower third just a bit for this piece as well. Isn't it frustrating too to get the API/IPA address and dealing with that? One of the challenges I'm having. So let me tell you what I'm doing here with Network Plus. So this last week, we have started Network Plus doing the videos. If you go to professormesser.com, and it'd be great if you could actually see this on the website. Here's the professormesser.com website. There's a Network Plus training link where you have the free Network Plus N10005 videos, but now you have free N10006 videos down here. And the reason it's down here is we've just started. The course notes, by the way, are right here as well. But if we click on the videos, we're just getting them posted. Here they are, the new training course. There's the course notes if you wanted to purchase those. There's the book I used to make all of the videos. I've only got 7 of them up right now. Of course, there's going to be well over 100. I've even got some that I uploaded just before the study group, and I'll be making them public this afternoon. And I've got more editing to do. I got lots of stuff in the can that needs to be edited. What's nice about these, by the way, is they are all in a brand new 1080 format. I've not ever produced videos in 1080p before. So all of the videos now are in 1080p format. How's that look? I know you're watching this. The best you could watch this in now is 720. But if you go out to YouTube and you click on these, I got to tell you, they look great. They really turned out really nice. Let me turn down the audio a bit. So when you do full screen now, and this one will catch up in a moment, except you can't see my head there. Let me get rid of, there we go. So this is where it's really turned out nice. So if you're someone who works in a higher resolution, you like to watch these videos on your mobile devices, it's obviously going to look okay. But if you're someone who watches it at home, and I'm getting to where I watch more and more of these YouTube videos on these these television boxes or the television itself, and my TV is 1080p, the video should be 1080p. I now get frustrated when the video that I'm watching on YouTube is not 1080p. So of course I need to produce these in 1080p, and they will absolutely be that way on YouTube now, which is great. I like having that there and working with that. And they do work really well. to have that there. Let's go back to the phone lines. We have a caller from, looks like 562 area code. Are you there, caller? What's your name?
Hello?
Hello, are you there?
Yeah, I'm doing good. How are you? My name's Haesong Hong.
Hey, pleased to make your acquaintance. Thanks for calling. What can we do for you today?
Yes, I was wondering, I'm having a lot of trouble with subnetting.
Indeed. What specifically are you running into? Is it knowing what the classes are? Is it doing the actual calculation of the subnet that's the issue? What's really causing you the biggest problem?
I think the biggest problem is getting different subnets and stuff like that. I don't know how to really calculate it.
This is one of those that is a common question that I get. I always ask before we do the study group, what are the things that you want to be able to do? What are the things that are giving you the most challenge with the Network Plus exam? And subnetting is constantly near the top of the list. I don't generally do a lot of subnetting on the study group. I really should do one. I've said this before, where the whole study group would do nothing but subnetting. So I'm not sure if everybody would leave or if everybody would stay, but I've considered doing something like that. My videos, of course, take you through the subnetting process and calculating out how to determine what the subnet is, what the number of hosts on the subnet is, what your network address is, and what your broadcast address is by doing the binary calculation. And one of the advantages I think that you have, or things at least that are good for you in this case, is on the Network Plus certification. If you were to look at the exam objectives, and we were just looking at those, if I can find my list of exam objectives, there's not much subnetting on the exam. We think about networking as being lots and lots and lots of subnetting, and you will run into certifications that you will take in your career that require a lot of subnetting, and that you'll need to be able to calculate these things in 5 seconds. And if you can't calculate it in 5 seconds, you don't need to be taking that exam. Network Plus isn't quite like that. Okay. On the Network Plus exam, if you look at all the exam objectives, you might get one question on subnetting. You might get two, but it would be unlikely for you to get more than that. So my general recommendation, because so many people run into problems or they're just not good at calculating the binary and figuring this out, is if you get it, that's great. You can use that information when you get to the exam, but don't get wrapped around the axle. Don't worry that you are spending all this time and you're not getting it. It may be that you set that aside for a bit and learn everything else on the Network Plus exam. Then maybe if you have time to study that, come back to it later and try to figure that out. At least understand the different IP classes, understand what CIDR block notation is referring to, and you should write out and know how to do binary calculations. If you know those three things, you are more than halfway there to being able to solve a subnetting problem. So those three things themselves aren't so bad, but I think part of the problem with subnetting is it seems like it's so overwhelming right out of the gate. And there's calculations and there's binary math that you have to do that a lot of people, I think, just decide, I'm not interested in doing this. This is way over what I wanted to do with this piece. So I think that that when I'm working through the exam objectives, don't worry so much about the subnetting, but go to my videos and I take you through from the very beginning, binary math. I take you through what those different IP classes are. And then I give you a couple of examples of how to take a subnet, break it out into binary, and determine what is the network address, what is the range of hosts on that network, and what is the broadcast address. And those are the things that you will probably be asked for with subnetting.
Okay.
There's another thing I have been considering, and maybe you can give me feedback, because I think a lot of people, it's not a great answer to say, oh, just skip that. That's a horrible answer. And yet that's sort of what I just said. I think it would be better to maybe give people some more shortcuts. There are ways to calculate subnets and ranges of addresses and broadcast addresses without doing the binary calculation. I tell you the binary calculation so that you can understand where these things are coming from. But there are a number of shortcuts you can do that help you do it in your head. And I don't have videos that go through the shortcuts because I didn't want to get too much into the subnetting piece, but I actually have a series of videos laid out. I have structures and mind maps that I've already created on this for how to do the ultimate subnetting from the very beginning to the very end, how to go from not being able to subnet in 5 seconds. And I just haven't created the videos yet. But I think given the number of people that are asking this question, maybe once I finish the Network Plus, I'll kind of do a subset of those that you could watch if you wanted to know it for the Network Plus, but perhaps wouldn't be required to know for taking the Network Plus exam. That might be an option as well. And hopefully that's giving you some ideas of what might be some good strategies for subnetting for your Network Plus.
Okay.
Good luck with that.
I have another question.
Yeah, go ahead. Sure.
And I have another question. I have a CompTIA Academic EC2, E2C Network Plus domestic voucher. Would this count as the Network 05 or
Yes.
the 06?
It depends on what the voucher number was. If you go to CompTIA's website for Network Plus, on their page, they break this down. For those of you that aren't familiar, and you'll see this on the CompTIA website, let me bring it up on my side so that everybody can see it. There are, of course, the two exams right now. There's the N10005 and the N10006, but you'll notice right underneath, there's this other exam for CompTIA Academy partners. If you're a student who is taking classes or has a relationship with a CompTIA Academy partner, there's a different number for the exam. There's JK0019 for the 005 exam. For the 006 exam, it's JK0023. So the voucher you have probably has one of those numbers on it, or maybe not. Maybe you can use it across both of them. But those are exams that are specific to CompTIA partners. It's exactly the same exam, exactly the same content, exactly the same exam objectives. But they separate it out because there's a different cost. It is greatly discounted for CompTIA Academy partners, which means if you have a relationship or you're taking classes in a place that is a CompTIA Academy partner, you got a great price to take this exam. It's heavily discounted. But you just have to make sure that you sign up for the right one and that you're able to do that.
Okay.
Good luck with that, and let us know how it goes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Take care.
Okay. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
There's you don't want to, by the way, you don't want to take the exam or buy the voucher for something you can't take. So don't buy. There's places you can go and it'll allow you to buy the CompTIA Academy Partner Voucher. And you think, I'm getting a great deal. I just bought the Academy Partner Voucher. Except then you go to take the exam and you're taking it at a place that is not a CompTIA Academy partner, and then it doesn't work. You run into problems. So don't do that. You're in trouble if you go through that piece and worrying about those. Okay, so there is not something that when you're looking at these things that you have to worry about. I think there's subnetting is a big example of one of those things. Don't worry about it. Don't get wrapped around the axle with those pieces and get that going. I think that's where I run into problems, is with those. To also talk more about the new set of exam objectives. I'm creating the videos right now. So the hard part, the hard part is over. Creating all of the content is the part that I've gone through. I've created every video content for the Network Plus exam. Now is what I call the easy part, which is sitting in front of the camera, talking to the camera, having the slides on the screen, doing the editing, posting to YouTube, putting on the website, doing the graphics. It's a very rote process. Creating the content is really the hard part, because it's the part where I'm trying to get across to you why this particular topic is important, how it applies in today's world, and what you should know to pass your exam with that information. So that's the easy part, and that's why the course notes are already done. So as I'm going through and making the videos, I'm running out of disk space. I was mentioning earlier before we started the study group that when I do a single video, I was showing the top of my head. Let's see if I can find that fantastic screenshot. By the way, I am so proud when I'm looking at those things. Let's pull up. I'm going to connect to my rack station. I've got them all on my SAN, or really NAS. It's not really a SAN. Let's pull that up and have a look. So if I I keep all of my original video all on network addressable storage. And I have a copy of that also on another array. So I've got data everywhere. So I'm using a lot of drives to be able to do this. And if I was to look at like the very first one of these that I did, the overview of Network Plus, and I grabbed the camera video. So here's this very attractive picture of me right here. So there, that's okay. That's a little better. So this is me in this video. This is 35 minutes long. This is me. Look, I got like, you don't even get to see that in the video. I did all those things out. So normally me stumbling over my words, clearing my throat, making sure you can hear me. Well, that's a great shot. That's going to be it's gone. I got to find that one. That'll be the great shot for the case. It's this video. We go. How long is this? 37 minutes and 59 seconds. 38 minutes long for this particular video. This is a video that ultimately turned out to be 10 minutes long, 11 minutes long. So a huge amount of data is cut up. I do the takes over and over and over again until I like it. And even then it's okay sometimes. So that's a pretty big video to have there, 38 minutes long. The video size, 67.9 gig. So 68 gigabytes of disk space for that one video. Now I am storing it in a format that really is using more a higher bit rate. This codec has a higher bit rate than I really need for 1080p, but I'm going to be converting this later to a lower bit rate. So I wanted to store it as something that was very high quality, and then we'll have a lower bit rate there. So I just have so much disk space. That's why I've got a lot of disk space. This is one storage manager. This is the other, and I added 2 more disks to it yesterday. I added 2 more 4 terabyte drives to this drive array, making for this single array, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 drives, all 4 terabyte drives, and it's only 41% through adding those disks. So I don't have the available disk space. I'm down to 123 gig of disk space on those particular devices. So that's what I've been doing, is cleaning up disk space, not only on the drive arrays, but I have to clean up disk space on my editing machine, which is the one in front of me. I edit everything here in the studio. So it's edited here. I kind of keep watching the chat while I'm editing, get through the editing piece, and then all of the files go back to the NAS once that's done. So some of you were asking about that prior to the study group. That's what I've been doing and working through those pieces. There is a lot that's going to be happening really over the next month. I think most everything is going to be going through and doing video over the next month. So that's what we're working on, is getting those out. And as the videos are made available, they're put on YouTube. I have a YouTube playlist. The best place to go, though, is the Professor Messer website and go to the main index, because every single one of the videos will shortly have transcripts and closed captioning, and I'm adding those to the website. So the way this works, and it's really remarkable, the way the whole transcription piece works, is I put the videos on YouTube, and then I have a transcription service where I simply tell them, here's my video, go transcribe it. I don't have to send them anything. I just send them the YouTube link. And actually it's integrated into their app on their website. The front end of their website actually links back to YouTube's API, which I've given it access to talk to. And I say, here's one I added, here's one I added, here's one I added, go. And then a week or 2 later, they add the transcription, and because they have a link to the video, they automatically add the closed captioning to the video. I don't even have to do anything, which is great. It's fantastic. So that makes it very easy for me to add the transcripts. So you'll notice they either will not have transcripts, or they have really bad transcripts, because they are the text-to-speech, speech-to-text transcripts that are automatically done by YouTube. But wait a couple of weeks, and a new transcription will get there, and new closed captioning is added, and at that point everything's beautiful. They do a great job at doing that. Everything is produced in this room by me. So if you see anything on the website, any of the videos that are done, From beginning to end is me. There's no staff of people. There's no team. There's a team. There is a team. Mrs. Professor Messer makes sure there's lunch and there's food and drink. My children maintain a quiet working environment, and they're part of that team to make that happen. Everything else happens right here. I'm the only one who gets to do it. So while I shoot, I take the video, I edit. And while I'm editing, of course, I'm not shooting. So it takes a little bit longer to produce those, but it gets there. It's not bad. I have a system now, so I've got it rolling. So I can shoot in the morning and get a good chunk of those done by the afternoon, and then hopefully the next day shoot some more. So that's the easy part. Fortunately, the studio is a self-contained entity, so there is nothing else that can make noise. I'm not connected to other rooms, so it's easy to get in here at any time of the day and make videos. So I can be here at midnight and make videos. Other people could be sleeping. Nobody knows what's going on. The reality is I'm playing EVE Online at midnight. I'm not doing videos what I should be. So busted. That's what happens to me. So I get late at night. Let's shoot a video. No, I could do this, do something else. So another question that came up in the chat room is, oh, by the way, the drives that I use are the Reds, the Western Digital Reds. I do not use the Western Digital Greens. Those are really designed for more low power and casual use. They're not designed for SAN or NAS type storage. And if I was to look at the drives, I use a Synology drive array. And if I was to go to the Synology website and looked at the drives that are compatible or that have been tested and approved, I would bet the green drives are not on that list. Maybe they are. I have a feeling they are not. I like the red drives more because they are designed for exactly what I'm doing here with these. What are the significant differences between the 005 and the 006? That is a very good question. There are quite a few differences, and the differences are minor. For instance, if we were to look at the exam objectives again, I'm going to bring up, and we'll just look at the very beginnings of these. I'm trying to get the exam objectives done, and at the same time, get something warm to drink. Because then I can talk more. If I look at these exam objectives, here's a good example of what's new. If I go through this, I've been making notes on mine, so kind of ignore the highlighting and the other things that are here. Section 1.1, almost exactly the same as the older exam. Not much change there. Section 1.2, I don't think GRE was on the old exam. Web services, unified voice services, and network controllers were not on the old exam, but everything else was, pretty much. So when you start looking at the differences, it's these little things thrown in there. I think IP Helper and DHCP Relay was not on the 005. I don't know why it wasn't. It just wasn't. And they added it. And so I added it on mine as well. The DNS records section, identical. But then you get into sections that are completely new. Let's scroll down and find the things that are completely new. I'm going to scroll. Thanks for dealing with you're watching someone scroll through a PDF. This is what's come to me. These are similar to the old one. There's a number of things thrown in here that are absolutely new. Sections on storage. Really, it's probably the security section that has the most number of changes. So I'm going to scroll down. Network security, section 3, the third domain. Compare and contrast risk-related concepts. Some of these are the same and some are different. Attacks and threats. Botnets, traffic spikes, coordinated attacks, reflective amplified, DNS and TP smurfing. We're now qualifying the type of threats and how people are doing them. You have to know what a reflective type of attack is and how a reflective attack is used with DNS and NTP and smurfing. So it does get into more detail with some of those things. A lot of it coming directly from the Security Plus exam, but it's asking them at kind of a higher level or broader level networking perspective. What I need to do is step through the certifications and kind of make a mind map of the two. Here's what was in the old, here's what's in the new, here's what's been dropped, here's what's been added. So you get those, you get the perspective of that. And and having that there. So that should give you an idea. I don't get the Western Digital black drives, by the way. I get the reds. They're for the money and for what I'm using them for. The reds are great. Black is a high performance drive. I'm doing disk storage. I'm storing things for archiving it. So that's exactly the case. And that's why I added those 2 new 4 terabyte drives. Yeah, I don't think a lot of the older Ethernet. So there's a lot of the older Ethernet stuff was dropped in the older exam. You're absolutely right. But every exam is updated to really contain what people are running into. I think somebody else was saying, oh, well, yeah, but they still ask for BNC connectors. So this is really outdated. Except we still use BNC connectors for things like T3. Everybody's running T3s in some of these older networks. You don't just drop them because a new technology came along. So you're absolutely going to see things on this exam. Everything on this exam is really either directly applicable to what's running in enterprises today, or the foundation of it is important to understand for what's running in the enterprises today. That's one thing about networking that really makes this particular exam a bit of a challenge, is that when you install network infrastructure, it could take a very long time for that network piece to finally be taken out of the network, because it is something that's just always there. A T1 is a very good example. We probably wouldn't buy a new T1 today, but if we have one, it's going to be there a while until we migrate away from it or find a different way to use that traffic. I think that's where the people get kind of messed up with the exams. They think these exams are supposed to be everything new. If it's not talking about Windows 10, why am I taking this exam? If it's not talking about 10 gig networks, 40 gig networks, 100 gig networks, it's outdated. Well, no, everything in here is exactly what you're going to run into. So that's where, whenever I start looking at what the exam is about, that's an important consideration too, to have that there. That's the next step for me, is to kind of step through this and break those things out for you. And I have a number of things that I do need to get done. The next videos will be posted today, so you'll get to see those too on that piece. There's a number of topics that I have already stepped through. As I mentioned, all of the content is done, but I have to make the videos, and they're all new content. It's all new videos. And I think a number of them I put out. No, they're not out. But you'll start to see those new videos today, the end of today. So things like web services, unified communication. Those are topics they are not complicated. They're like 3-minute videos, but it's important to know what those topics are. Tons of acronyms. You're absolutely right. The chat room mentioning this as well. I'm going to bring up the list again. The Network Plus acronym list is monstrous. And I think pretty much all of these are covered to some degree on the certification exam. If they're not directly referenced on a slide, then they are certainly discussed as part of a description of a slide. Gosh, there's so many. This exam is crazy with acronyms. So it's just one of the things about doing this is this exam, networking in general, just has a ton of acronyms. I think I was going through and highlighting, okay, here's one, got to put that one in there, get this one in the video, get that one in the video. And I'm still scrolling and scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. How many more we're going to have in there? There's a lot. So that's a good example of why you have to be able to have your acronyms in place, or else you're never going to get through this exam, and being able to do that. Yeah, so that's one of the things that I want to make it's useful. If you have a drive array or you have data you want to protect, I have multiple versions of this data in different places. So I have multiple drive arrays. I'm going to physically actually move one drive array to a different building, just so I have a backup of the data that is somewhere else. That's my next step. So I got to do that this weekend. I got to put some things together and make that happen. So it's all about organizing, coordinating where all of this data is going. Kind of a challenge to get all these things put together, but that's the way it's going to go. There's a lot. A question came up earlier in the chat room. I think it was answered pretty well, but it's worth bringing up also. is that what is the comparison of the Network Plus exam to Cisco's CCENT exam? And for those of you familiar, the CCENT is Cisco's enterprise entry-level technician exam. And you take the CCENT and then there's a separate exam. You take those two together and you get your Certified Network Administrator exam for our CCNA from Cisco. There's also a single exam you could take that covers all the information from both of those. Just take the one exam. It's a big exam. Take it one time and you'd also get your CCNA. It used to be that the CCNA and the Network Plus exam were pretty much on parity. They were very similar to each other. If you look through the exam objectives, they were very, very close to each other. But last year, Cisco dramatically changed the layout and structure of their exams. They moved things around. And now the CCNA, although it contains a similar amount of information, it's now a much smaller overlap between those two certifications. And you'll find that there's a lot more CLI, configuration, hands-on protocols, dynamic routing configurations on the CCENT that you never get into for the Network Plus. So the Network Plus makes a good entry-level exam. And if you're going to take the CCENT, you may want to take the Network Plus first, and then you'll slide right into the CCENT to get that done. But they are very different exams. Make sure you look at the exam objectives for both. You can't study the Network Plus and expect to pass your CCENT. You will not pass it. It won't be done. That's it. More questions about production. When I say content is done, I mean the video content, the slideware is done, and the demonstrations that I'm going to show have been laid out and structured. So that way I turn on the camera at that point and I just run through the content. I run through the videos. I don't read often out. I really read off the slides. That's my cue. I don't have word for word cue cards. Thank you for watching this video. The next topic we will cover deals with unified communication. I am the one writing the content for the slides, so I have an idea of when I'm writing the bullets that I know what I want the topic of that bullet to get across. There's a something relating to that bullet I want to get over to you. And so that's the cue for me to go, oh yeah, that's reminding me to tell you this about unified communication. So I'm stepping through a story and then I finish the story and then I'm done. But I don't have like a memorized speech or cue cards or anything I'm reading word for word. I'm just sort of telling you the story that I've laid out on the slides, if that makes any sense. It's one of those things. Part of what I've done in the past, I think I've told the story before, is very early in my career, I was in corporate training, right? Training classes. So you get accustomed to talking to people and telling the story and going through different topics. I have been a systems engineer where I am trying to make people understand how this product is unique and the problems that it can solve. So you're telling a story there. I've worked in corporate marketing. So I have tried to take technical concepts and put them into a package that explains why this technical thing is valuable for what you're trying to do and the problems you're trying to solve. And I've done public speaking. I've been in the past, I've been the company spokesperson. So whenever there was press or analysts that needed to discuss things about a product, I would be the company spokesperson for those things. So I think the more you're able to talk in front of people and do those things, it becomes easier and easier and easier to take bullets and take what you're trying to get from there and explain it as a story. And I think if you can do that, it can be very valuable to make that happen. I think that's one of those times where I think that I think you just do it over and over and over again. What is the saying that more people are afraid of public speaking than they are of dying? That they have a greater fear of speaking in public than they do of passing away. Which means, I think it's Jerry Seinfeld may have said this, which means that if you're the one who is, you would rather be the one at a funeral who's in the box rather than the one who's talking, which is there's some truth to that. I think that whenever I start doing this, I tell people all the time, just get accustomed to it. Now I could get in front of anybody and talk, and get in front of a crowd of anybody and talk to them. But yeah, it was hard at first. It's hard to get that going. It's hard to make those things happen with those pieces. I think that's where I had the biggest challenge is getting through that piece. I've had just horrible presentations, cringeworthy telephone calls with the press, just blew it. But I think you have to just crash. You have to just have miserable experiences, because you don't learn from that unless you do. Just remember that if you do get in front of a bunch of people and you blow it and you just crash and burn horribly, just know that they're on the other side. You're going to be better, because next time you know what you did wrong. You can adjust. You can work through those things. It's a little bit of a challenge, but if you're able to do this, where you're taking a very technical concept and explain it to somebody, that applies in anything you do, whether it's help desk, working on a network, being a manager of a group of people, being in IT, being a systems engineer, being a company spokesperson. It doesn't matter. All of those things become valuable. So that's how it works. And if you saw one of the videos I have to do, I'm screwing up the whole way. I'm talking to camera and I'll say the word wrong, or I won't say what I'm trying to get across, or I'll say it and I'll think, that didn't even make sense, what I just said. Let's do it again. And we go through the thing again. And by the time you see it, I've already said it 3 times. So I've kind of gotten the story better every time. And then finally I edit out me going, what was I trying to say there? That doesn't even make sense. Or me stumbling over a word. Somebody once said, I want to see the outtakes, the most boring outtakes in the world. It's me saying, and that's why whenever we start working, no, I didn't like that. Let's do another one. Whenever you're working with unified communications, you may find you're just going down the line. The hardest videos to go through are the ones where I have to go to brand new material. So unified communications, the web services, those that are brand new to the course, I've not done before. And even though I recorded the last one 3 years ago, you still remember the story. So you really have to spend time before you start the recording. What am I going to say? How am I going to say it? So once you do that, it's all rote. You've got it then. You should do that no matter what you're doing. You do it on reports. You do it on presentations you're doing. I try to keep my slides very short and very simple and to the point, and every bullet has a story. If the bullet doesn't have a story, it's not leading you down the road, I get rid of it. Some slides end up being a lot of text, and I apologize for that. Just some of these topics require it, and it's part of my story, and I want to get through it. I try to break it up with graphics, but sometimes it's just hard to do. And of course, presentations, demonstrations is ultimately one of the best ways. And that's why whenever we talk about traceroute and ping and dig and NSLOOKUP, I like showing you that technology. I like showing you how it works, because I think everybody gets better information when you're looking at it that way. Okay, we're getting to the top of the hour. There have been, a lot of you have sent in the continuing education unit questions. Thank you. If you have the continuing education information that you would like me to send you the certificate on that, you have to know what the keyword is, which I said sometime during that hour, that first hour. Take that continuing education keyword, go to the Professor Messer website, click the Contact Us link at the top, and then you just send me that keyword. I know what it means when I get it. You can put information there, put a note in there if you'd like. I read all of those. But you've got some options there. Send it to me and I'll know what that is, because I know what the keyword was. It's not something you really run into in day-to-day conversation. I don't wonder, why are these people sending me these odd words in my email? I know why you're sending me the odd words. It may take me a day or 2 or 3 or a week to get them to you. But if you don't receive it, try again. Sometimes people write the wrong email address in. I know, but it happens. And I'll send it back and it gets bounced back to me. So if you don't get it, just let me know. I can spin it around pretty quick, especially if you need these for a particular reason. Remember that the CEUs for this, I think you can only get 3 or 4 of these in an entire 3-year period. So you can't renew your entire certification by watching these. That would be nice. But you've got that to work with. No saying what the keyword is in the chat room. I'm not going to tell you. Got to watch the video to be able to do that. I think that you do have to watch the video, not in real time. You can watch the replay. If you look at the CompTIA exam or the exam CEU explanation, they say, yes, you can watch the replay. You just have to send me that keyword and get the digital certification I'm going to send you back so that you have that. I think most of you are probably going to be renewing your certification by taking another higher level cert. So I don't think you're going to need these, but I think it does help whenever you're working through trying to do things other than take an exam. These, of course, will help with those pieces. Well, it was there were a lot of us on. Let me make sure I didn't check I've been doing this, and of course my phone lines are out here. Make sure I didn't lose anyone under that. Yep, under contact us, and you'll be fine with that. Well, that brings us, I think, really to what the end of another one of these live study groups. Again, I do these every month. Your questions go directly into creating the content. I could not do it without you. Thank you for your support also on the study guides and the course notes. I would not be able to do any of this unless there wasn't that kind of support as well. We're now running 2 web servers, a database server. There's a load balancer. All of this is being run in the cloud. There's costs associated with doing this, and you've just made it so easy to have all of those resources available. This could not have worked out any better. I want to thank everyone for doing that. We'll do another one of these next month. Be sure to check professormesser.com/calendar for the list of when these things may be coming up. Sometimes it takes me a number of weeks, and I give a couple of weeks notice before these things happening. But that is one way that you can keep track of when we're going to do another one of these, or just send me an email and I'll let you know if I've got it scheduled or not. We'll get those online. Be sure to send me your CEU updates, and we'll see you next time on the study group. Thanks, everyone.